Be'ezras Hashem, with Hashem's help, hope everybody's doing well. Hope you had an easy fast yesterday as we begin our 3 weeks journey here, yearning, longing for the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash and the return to Yerushalayim, both the physical place and the spiritual state. Be'ezras Hashem. We jump back into a new week with the continuation of our journey through Sefer Sichos Haran. Be'ezras Hashem, I'm going to share my screen now. Just make sure we're recording, just in case.
Recording in progress.
Okay, great. So here I'm going to share my screen. We can take a look at the sources. And we jump in at Sichos Haran, Kuf Nun Dalid, 154. And Reb Nosson says the following. Second, okay. Okay. So Reb Nosson says like this. Shamati b'shmoi sha'amar. I heard in the name of Rabbi Nachman that he said the following thing. She'ikar ma she'higi l'madrigasai, that the main way that Rabbi Nachman reached the levels that he reached, hu rak aidei inyan prostik, was only through the concept of prostik. If you remember last week, we learned about Rabbi Nachman's revealing the teaching of Ein Shem Yesh Ba'olam Klal, that there's no despair in the world at all. And we spoke about how Rabbi Nachman began that lesson by saying he didn't know anything, right? He said, Achshav, I don't know anything at all. And he was speaking about the Derech Eretz, that's Kadma L'Torah, the approach of Eretz Yisrael, which is supported by Hashem's chesed. Long before HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Klal Yisrael, the Eretz Yisrael-oriented energy of the Avos, before the Torah is given, is an energy of grace, is an energy of unconditional gifting from Hashem's perspective. The aspect of Chanina, of Hashem is the Chanun V'Rachum Yesh Oitzer Matnas Chinam. I think we even titled the shiur, the treasury of unearned gifts. So the Rebbe said that when people are in a state of prostik, which means simple, pshitos, they're getting life force from the tzaddik's avodah in the time when he is a prostik. Like we learned from the way that the Rebbe kept on saying, I don't know anything at all. I don't know anything at all. I forgot all of my learning. And then from within that, the whole lesson blossomed and developed, like we learned last week, until finally Rabbi Nachman just announced, Ein Shem Yesh Ba'olam Klal, there's no despair, Gewalt, Zaydach Nish Miyash, don't give up, Ein Shem Yesh Ba'olam Klal. So here, this is sort of like a continuation of that, where Rabbi Nachman is telling his Hasidim and his students and all of Klal Yisrael, you and me today, that the primary way that the Rebbe reached the madrigas that he reached was only through the inyan of prostik, was only through the concept of pshitus, simplicity. What kind of simplicity are we speaking about? Where the Rebbe would speak very, very, very much in his own words between him and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was constantly speaking to Hashem. And just without any deep intentions and deep Kabbalistic meditations, he would just say lots and lots of Tehillim. Lots of Tehillim. Just to say the Tehillim. He would say lots and lots of Tehillim. And Rabbi Nachman told his students, this is how he reached the levels that he reached. It wasn't the complicated, Kabbalistic, meditative, deep, eon learning. That wasn't what did it. What did it was the simple, authentic, basic, heartfelt investments in serving Hashem in a simple way. Tehillim, speaking to Hashem in his own words. This is what enabled Rabbi Nachman to reach the levels that he reached. But Amar, and he said an interesting thing, he said, if I would have known that Hashem would turn me into what I became, because he understood it wasn't an inyan of gaiva. We've spoken about this previously. Rabbi Nachman really praised himself a lot. He spoke about what kind of great neshama he had. He spoke about who he is and what he was sent to the world to accomplish. He knew what he was. But it wasn't an extension of him feeling how great he felt about himself. It was just the realization, like this was the neshama that Hashem gifted him. But he said if he would have known that he would become what he eventually became, an incredibly novel revelation of Torah and spiritual connection, he said, he said, I would do in one day what it took me a year to accomplish. I would have done in one day. Kaloimar, meaning he would have toiled and worked in one day how much there is to accomplish, and in the simple avodas, again, not in the deep, really difficult, challenging, serving Hashem. In the simple things, a lot of tehillim, a lot of speaking to Hashem in his own words, his does. He would have done what took him a year to do. He would have been so excited to reach that level. He would have done it all. He would have just packed it into one day. He wouldn't have slept. He wouldn't have eaten. He would have just focused to realize tefillah works. Simple avodah can move a person along. It really works, right? When we're davening, we're saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you could do anything. You could turn each and every one of us, no matter what our limitations are, no matter what we're stuck in, whatever we find challenging, Hashem, you could change the whole situation. We really believe that. And we just have to keep on, like Rabbi Akiva's rock, the water, drip after drip after drip. Shivchi kamayim libech noichach pnei Hashem. You never ever know. We actually had shiur on this. If you remember, we gave shiur on this idea earlier on in this series, where Rabbi Nachman said, it might look like your tefillah isn't working. Tefillah always works. Bit by bit, drip by drip, you don't stop davening, because you never know what the breakthrough will be. You never know when you'll hear the drip, but you won't hear the drop, because it just goes straight through the rock. You never ever know. You never know when the whole thing opens up. And so this is what the Rebbe said. If I would have known what I would have become, he said, I would have just spent the whole day just saying Tehillim, davening to Hashem. Kalaimar, in other words, Shahayim is Dari's Kol Kach V'Avodasai Ad Shema Shahaya Oisa V'Avad Hashem is Baruch B'Shana Kula Haya Oisa V'Yayim Echad. He would have served Hashem with such great zemiros that what it previously took him a whole year to do, he said he would do it in one day. And the Rebbe, he would sort of like long and yearn for this thing called prustik, this simple way of serving Hashem, be'emes, with vulnerability and authenticity and just simplicity, which is so sweet. Va'amar, and he would just say again and again, I, prustik. To be a simple Jew. I, prustik. Where the whole world is trying to be all fancy and sophisticated and developed and all impressive, and the Rebbe said that's not where it's at. I, prustik. How sweet it is just to be a simple Jew. Just to sit in the back of shul with the Tehillim, nothing fancy, no great mental gymnastics, just simple. Simple, tamim tiyeh im Hashem alikecha. To be wholesome and simple and direct and straightforward in our service of Hashem and in our relationship with Him. Gam Amar, Rabbi Nachman also said, Shadiber im kama tzadikim gedolim. Rabbi Nachman said that he spoke with many great tzaddikim. Va'amru gamkein, and they told him the same thing that he was telling his chasidim. Shaloi higil madrigasam ki imayde inin prustik. The only way that they reached the levels they reached, again, it's counterintuitive, it's not what we would think, was the simple things, not the complicated, complex, intricate, the simple expressions of desire to get close to Hashem. That's what brought them to their madriga. Because they really invested in their avodah in total simplicity, with a lot of personal prayer and talking to Hashem in their own words, and just conversing with Hashem like Rabbi Nachman told Rav Nassan, like you would to your best friend in the world. Not even to daven, like we like to say oftentimes in our Yichad HaSpodah series. It's not tefillah per se. It's sicha. It's just a talk. It's a heart-to-heart. It's just real talk. Just sharing with Hashem what you're going through. Being open. Not even asking anything. Just sharing your life with Him. Allowing Him in. Says Rabbi Nachman, I heard from these tzaddikim that it was only through this that they attained the level that they reached. Ashrei lahem, fortunate are these tzaddikim who knew what life was all about, who knew that it wasn't about covet and about impressing others, who knew it was about just investing in the authentic relationship that we're able to build in a simple way. So here we turn outside of Sichos Haran, we take a look at Shabbos Haran. Shabbos Haran is a collection of more biographical information about Rabbi Nachman's life, primarily in his youth, and a lot of the challenges and struggles and different things that he was working on when he was growing up, as well as a very lengthy account of his legendary trip to Eretz Yisrael. This is Shabbos Haran. Sometimes it's printed in an appended volume in Sichos Haran, so you'll a lot of times find Sichos Haran and Shabbos Haran, which is much thinner, and they're printed together. But we read the following in Shabbos Haran about Rabbi Nachman's own simplicity and the way that that availed him this deep, incredibly profound relationship with Hashem. And it says in this holy sefer Shabbos Haran, and thank you to all again for joining. It's just so great to see your faces every week, to be able to sit and learn together, take this journey, connect in this way. It's an amazing thing. So thank you all for that. And the Heilige Rebbe begins like this: Shabbos Haran, ach ikar avoidasai. Reb Nosson, who was transcribing this, writes that the primary avodah of Rabbi Nachman, asher al yada zacha l'masha zacha, through which Rabbi Nachman attained what he attained, like we're learning in this piece, hayarak riboy hatfilos v'hatchinos v'habakashos v'haritzuyim v'hapiyusim, was all of the prayers and the supplications and the requests and the ritzuyim, the begging, v'hapiyusim, and the attempts to appease HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he was constantly pouring forth in prayer before the Master of Heaven and Earth. Rabbi Nachman was appeasing, so to speak, Hashem with a lot of different kinds of ways to convince Hashem to have Rachmanas, and many different formulations and ways of arousing and awakening Hashem's mercy. Like famously, the Berditchev Rav was also very busy with this. The Berditchev Rav would walk into a shul, and Nebuch, if he would see somebody maybe drop their tefillin, and see how quickly he would quickly scoop it up and kiss the tefillin, and the Berditchev would come to Hashem with that. And the Berditchev would say, Ribono d'Alma Koila, look how the simplest Jew in the world, they drop their tefillin, oh my gosh, how quickly they pick it up and how lovingly they cherish it, and they kiss it and they look and they examine it to make sure that everything is okay. And Master of Heaven and Earth, Klal Yisrael are your tefillin. It's written in Hashem's tefillin, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael, and we're laying on the ground, can't you scoop us up? Right? These are different sort of methodologies with which, in ingenious ways, in creative, novel ways, to awaken Hashem's Rachmanas. And this is what Rabbi Nachman would do. She'izakeu berachamav, to convince Hashem to have mercy on him, l'karv la'avodasi yizbarach, to bring him close to Hashem, which is the only reason we're on this planet, is to succeed in building this bond, in awakening our consciousness to live with emunah, with v'tzadik be'emunasa yichya. V'ikar ma'asha ha'ilai, and the primary thing that benefited Rabbi Nachman, who, sorry about that, was rather, it's a new camera, 1 second, losing it, 1 second. I have to figure out how to get this to work properly. 1 second, I'm so sorry about this. I'm just going to plug it in again. Sorry about that. Okay, we're back. Sorry. So, 1 second. Let's share the screen again. So the primary thing that really was the thing that did it, says Reb Nosson, the main thing that helped him, was the prayers that he would offer up in Yiddish. He would constantly seek to find a place where he could be alone with Hashem, where there were no people. And he would constantly speak to Hashem in the regular language, in the vernacular that they would use to converse. Tainem Lashon Ashkenaz, which is the Jewish form of German, which is Yiddish. And he would try to appease and to convince Hashem, Mevakshei, and request, and beg lefonav Yisbarach bekama mine tainas v'amaslois, with many different kinds, like we said before, of strategic ways of convincing Hashem that he deserved being brought close. And he would spend many years and many days doing this. He would also hide himself in the house of his parents, tachas hagag, in the attic, in the loft, underneath the roof. There was some kind of small room made out of reeds. It was like storage space where they would put grain and straw for the animals, or reserves, whatever they had needed for the winter, whatever. And that's where he would hide himself. And he would be alone with Hashem. And he would say lots of Tehillim. Which we learned about in the beginning of this series. Rabbi Nachman would cry out in a silent way, that Hashem should bring him close. And the principle is, the main point is, all kinds of requests from Hashem in the world that exist, sefer that exist in any kind of collection of prayers, beinenu, hakol kashal hakol, everything. Any of those prayers that we find among our Sfarim, he was like obsessed. Like he would collect all the different kinds of tefillas that you could find scattered throughout the different writings of the Ramchal and the Mevakshei, and this one and that one, even though the Mevakshei was later, but I'm just giving an example. All of the previous tzaddikim, all the different teachings and prayers that you can find, he would collect them and he would repeat them again and again. Hein Tehillim, obviously Sefer Tehillim. There was a Sefer Sharit Tzion that was a collection of many different kinds of prayers. And many other addenda to our tefillos, to our davening, that were included in the larger Sidurim that contain collections of other prayers. All different kinds of requests. Even the requests that were written in Yiddish. This is what he loved to do. He would collect them all and he would say them all. He would say all the tefillos related to the ma'amados, the longer tefillos, not just the shir shayom, but in certain sidurim that are printed, the ma'amados, he would say that too. He would just say all of the day's worth at one time. He would just, anything that he could say that was additional, that was a prayer, the Rebbe would say. And to us, so on a simple level, wow, this was his avodah, meaning this was his expression of a desire to get close to Hashem, and this is what he did. But on the other hand, remember, tefillah works. Tefillah is effective. So he got what he was looking for. It took so much tefillah, but because he was obsessive about this, and he was like, He was like a connoisseur of prayer. He was constantly looking for tefillahs. Eventually, with time, Hashem listened. And what a lesson it is for all of us, right? The same idea. The power of tefillah. The power of tefillah is very real. Sometimes he would say Tehillim, but not the chapters of Tehillim as they're arranged, the 150 kapitlach prakim of Tehillim that we have. He would single out the particular psukim that express crying out to Hashem, like Tzama lecha nafshi, Kama lecha basari, right? Or Ka'ayel targal afike mayim, or all these different kinds of tefillas where David Melech Elecha Hashem nafshi esa, all these psukim where David is expressing Shivchi kamayim libech noichach pnei Hashem. All of these kinds of tefillos, Rabbi Nachman would collect them all, and he would say just those. Rak ha'psukim ha'medaber mitchinus ha'bakashas utzaka la'Hashem yisbarach. V'ya oimer rak psukim elu v'ashar lo haya oimer. He would skip over all the rest of the psukim, and he would just sort of like cherry pick and make a collection of all of these specific psukim that describe and lend a voice to our deepest yearning of longing for Hashem. Because that's what the ikr for Rabbi Nachman was. There are lots of other things in Tehillim. There are lots of other things in Yiddishkeit. But to the Rebbe, the main thing was the main thing. The essence of the tachlis of Rahman Liba Boy, of our yearning for dveikus with Hashem. That's the whole thing of it. That's the beginning, the middle, and the end. That's the premise and the ultimate objective. That's the underlying foundation and the overarching theme. This is what Yiddishkeit is. So to the Rebbe, this is what he did. Oh, it's wandering again. So I have to somehow find a way to bring it back. I haven't managed to figure this thing out yet. No, come back. Oh, there you go. Okay. So this was what the Rebbe was accomplishing. And this is what he was doing. He was picking out these psukim, and those psukim he was saying. And he would go through the whole Sefer Tehillim just picking out those particular psukim and saying them, I'm sure, with so much feeling. And in addition to this, the main thing, was, beyond that was just his own tefillah. The way that he was davening of his own words. Like we said, his own hispodidus. That he would originate from his own mind, from his own heart. That Hashem should refine him and bring him close to be able to serve Hashem be'emes. Rabbi Nachman said if there's one thing that he would attribute the madrigas that he reached, it was to this and to this alone. This is what brought Rabbi Nachman to the madrigas that he reached. This aspect of constant saying tefillah. And to have Sefer Tehillim on our phone, and you have 5-10 minutes, Tehillim, constantly. Any tefillah you can get your hands on to say. And to spend time with this avodah. And it paid dividends. It paid off for Rabbi Nachman. And he got the return on his investment. Okay, we move on to the next Sichos Haran Kufnan Hey. And this is a very beautiful teaching. Shaykh L'Simen Yud Zayin B'Likutei Tinyana. This is relevant to the 17th teaching in Likutei Maharan Tinyana, which begins with the words Tzarich Lizar Ma'od Lias B'Simcha B'Shabbos. The Rabbi Nachman teaches it's very important to try our best to be happy on Shabbos. This is somewhat related to a teaching from the Zohar Kodesh, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai commenting on the pasuk that tells us Lo sevaro eish b'chol mashveiseichem b'yom HaShabbos. You should not kindle a fire in all of your dwelling place on the day of Shabbos. The Zohar says, you know what fire means? Fire, says the Zohar, Rabbi Shimon says fire is anger. So Lo sevaro eish b'chol mashveiseichem b'yom HaShabbos doesn't only mean that a person shouldn't light a fire. It means don't kindle the flame of anger on Shabbos. Shabbos, we have to be in good energy. Shabbos is oineg, Shabbos is simcha. Ein danin b'Shabbos. There's no din called dinin misaber mino, like we say in Kegavna. There's no din on Shabbos. Ki'ilu kol malachto chasuya. There's no tension. There's no anxiety about what the future holds. There's no stress over the past. There's nothing. Just supposed to be on Shabbos. It's supposed to be simcha. Kol za amar b'leil Shabbos Kodesh. All of this Rabbi Nachman told over on Friday night. And Rabbi Nassan says, prior to Rabbi Nachman revealing this teaching to the Hasidim, Rabbi Nassan was there, and Rabbi Nachman asked Rabbi Nassan, tell me, ha'ata sameach b'Shabbos? Are you happy on Shabbos? And Shafti, Rabbi Nassan, who you can pick up from his teachings, especially his letters, his writings, had somewhat of an anxious personality, somewhat of a heavy, maybe severe, very intense personality. And Rabbi Nachman was trying to do a lot of work with that component of Rabbi Nachman's personality, which is so relatable to so many of us, which is why we also feel that Rabbi Nachman is so relevant in the same way that Rabbi Nassim did, because he dealt with a lot of these sort of, emotional, spiritual complexities. So Rabbi Nassim answered him, listen, he says, well, actually, sometimes on Shabbos, I find myself in a state of awe, in a state of fear. Yira b'Shabbos, frum. I feel very frum, very intense. So I answered Rabbi Nachman, I don't know about joy, but ich bin amal frum. Sometimes on Shabbos, I feel a certain level, actually, of severity, of intensity. V'heishiv, Rabbi Nachman answered, Loi kachu. No, this is not the way. Ha'ikr hu simcha. He said the main thing is joy. Then Rabbi Nachman gave him a lot of musar, and he said, you must be happy on Shabbos. See to it that you'll be joyous on Shabbos. Then Rabbi Nachman told over the whole aspect of the teaching over there, Ayin Sham, in Torah Yud Zayin and Tinyana. V'nichlol Sham, and included in that teaching, to incorporate, like we said, so many of Rabbi Nachman's teachings incorporated the anecdotal circumstances that were taking place before, prior, around the teaching. So of course he included this that Rabbi Nassim said, that on Shabbos he feels yira, v'nichlol sham, so he included in the teaching, shegam hayira, even yira shamayim, ikar aliyasu al yidei simcha shel Shabbos daika. In order for the yira to be the way it's supposed to be, it's all as a result of the joy. It all has to be through the simcha of Shabbos. That the truth is, the main thing is simcha. And then through joy on Shabbos, the yira can also go up in the proper way. It's not intense. It doesn't. It's the way it's supposed to be, without having chas v'shalom any detrimental impact on a person's spiritual state. Rabbi Nachman spent a long time talking about this important thing. And he encouraged all of us, and Rabbi Nassim says, me, he encouraged more than anyone, to do what we could, to be besimcha on Shabbos, and to really enjoy Shabbos, to invest in Shabbos, in the food of Shabbos, in the clothing for Shabbos, in all the nice things, the flowers and the decorations, and the table and the cutlery, and the way everything is set up, to really go all out. Rabbi Nachman says you got to go all out for Shabbos, because Shabbos you have to be so besimcha. It's so crucial to be happy on Shabbos. You have to go all out. Ba'amar, and he said, right, the Gemara in Be'ah says that all of the expenses of a person are set, but Shabbos and Yantiv is not part of the cheshbon. Shabbos and Yantiv, you can just spend and spend and spend, and it won't take away an iota. Ba'amar, and he said, see that halagama balavai is pashut, even the simplest Jew in the world who sameach b'Shabbos ba'adagim ha'zhupacha shalai. He has so much joy from the fish, from the zhupacha, which apparently means soup. And you'll find a way to be happy on Shabbos. Some people will be happy with the food. Some people will learn a little bit more deeply about Shabbos, which we've been doing now for a few years with our Thursday Night Shabbos series, all on YouTube, on Spotify. We're going through the depth of Shabbos. It's endless. It's the whole Yiddishkeit of Shabbos. So there are deeper layers of the joy that we could feel depending on our hasaga and our level of consciousness. But everybody has a reason to be happy on Shabbos. So then Rabbi Nachman, knowing his student all too well, knowing Rabbi Nassim's sort of emotional makeup, Amar li, so Rabbi Nassim said, Rabbi Nachman then said to me, he said, he says, well, now you're going to have all the more reason to be sad. Kavanasai, meaning, now that he told me about how it's important to be happy on Shabbos, says Rabbi Nassim, now I'm going to be even sadder than before. If I'm sad on Shabbos, and I know now that I'm really supposed to be happy on Shabbos, and I just cannot manage it, I'll be even more sad that I'm supposed to be happy and I'm not happy. Obe'emes, says Rav Nosson, how did he know? Kivan ma'oy lamachshavti bezeh. Because Rav Nosson was like a warrior in a sense on his level. He was worried. He was thinking to himself, oh my, now I'm going to have another reason to be anxious on Shabbos, that I'm not supposed to be anxious, but I'll be anxious that I shouldn't be anxious. Once Rabbi Nachman was speaking about how on Shabbos it's important to be besimcha, not to be anxious, said Rav Nosson, immediately my mind started, whirling with all these fears and worries. How am I going to manage that? How can I do this? This is such an important avodah. How? But when Rabbi Nachman added these words, like knowing you, now you're going to be, even sadder that you're supposed to be happy. So Rav Nosson says, no, but that gave me strength. Obviously that's not the point, right? Obviously, anything in Yiddishkeit that we're supposed to do, if the whole goal is to bring us to Yishav Adas, and it's not mamish halacha, we speak about hispodidus a lot, and people then get stressed out that they didn't do hispodidus yet. Or they stressed out that they could only do 48 minutes, and they couldn't do a full hour, and they're so stressed out about that. And it's crazy. Because the whole purpose of hispodidus is that a person should be less stressed out, that a person should be b'yishav adas, that a person should be b'shleimos, that a person should be happy, that a person should be calm, that a person should be accepting of their circumstances. That's the whole thing of hispodidus. So what does it help now that a person knows, it's like an additional thing, I have to do hispodidus, and if I don't do it, I'm going to be worse off than I would be without this whole inyan of hispodidus, chas v'shalom. So Rav Nosson realized that's what Rabbi Nachman was telling him. This is what Rabbi Nachman was giving me strength and comforting me. Chas v'shalom, this is not a reason to be even sadder than I was before. From this itself, that I'm supposed to be happy on Shabbos, and I can't manage to figure out a way to do that. That's not the point. The point is, everything should be calm, everything should be easy, smooth, flow. It's got to be with flow. Can't be too intense. And we certainly can't be intense about the necessity to be in flow. That's a contradiction in terms. There's no way. So then, while Rabbi Nachman was speaking about the importance of being besimcha on Shabbos, so Rabbi Nosson, who was so longing to reach this madrega, he really wanted his Shabbos to be full of simcha, to be full of joy, to be full of consciousness. So said Rabbi Nosson, I spoke up and I announced v'amarti, and I said, I really want to be b'simcha on Shabbos. I want it. Rebbe, I want it. You're teaching us how important it is. I want it deeply. The reason Reb Nosson says that I said that is that if I won't be able to merit joy on Shabbos, let it be known to myself and to everybody else that this is what I want. Even if I'm not actually able to attain it, I want it. Because because we've already heard so many important teachings from Rabbi Nachman about the value of a ratzon, which I'm sure we've had many shiurim about in the past. That even if a person isn't meriting to do the thing, but to verbally express their desire to do the thing, this is a very high madrega, and there's value there in and of itself, even though theoretically on this worldly level it's like sachakol, what do you gain? Right, at the end of the day you didn't do it, so you wanted to do it. Big deal. But it is a big deal. It is a big deal because this reality is not all there is. And so even if on this worldly perspective we're not privileged to reach the madrigas that we want to reach, to awaken that yearning inside is a very, 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 very powerful avodah. Like the Lashon of the Zohar Kodesh says, Les ru'usa tava de'is avid. There is no positive expression of holy desire that ever gets lost. Even if a person doesn't merit to actually actualize their desire so that it's seen as being a means toward an end. There is no end. The person never gets there. The person never manages to finish Shas. But they really wanted it. And they said it, and they spoke about it, and they yearned, and they longed, and they... Says the Zohar, none of that ever is wasted. Hashem contains and keeps all of those holy expressions of desire that even though they seem to be means toward an end, they represent an end in and of themselves. They itself represent spiritual success. To be a human being in this world with so many distractions and so many challenges and so many difficulties, to have this as our primary desire, we desire to do your will, like the Gemara tells us that there's the yeast in the dough, the Yetzer Hara prevents us, it makes it difficult, but I promise you, Master of the world, I don't want anything else but this. That's incredibly valuable. Then, once he was on the topic of speaking about Shabbos and the way that a person is supposed to act on Shabbos, he encouraged us to sing many songs on Shabbos. And, says a sharp thing, says Rabbi Nachman, don't worry if there are people who are at the table who you're apprehensive and feeling inhibited because you don't think they're going to appreciate your singing, or they're going to want to sing and whatever. That's not, he says, no. Do what you can, no matter what the context is. You need to do what you need to do. Shabbos is for joy. Shabbos is for singing. Doesn't matter if everybody wants to talk about football or politics. You sing. It doesn't matter whether they like it or not. And obviously, having a pleasant voice is more compassionate on the people at the table. If they can't really do that, so it might be ben adam l'chavero, not ben adam l'makam. But generally speaking, you sing. It doesn't matter, what their feeling on it is. And to sit at your table, he says the whole Shabbos day for a long time with great joy. Shabbos is for joy. Sometimes Shabbos meals become places of fighting, of anger, of you've got to bring it back to joy, because it can happen, with our intense conversations. It happens, it happens oftentimes at my home, because we have conversations, hashkafa, things, we work things out. But the ikr is bring it back to what the main thing. The main thing really is not the conversation. The main thing is the singing. Because even conversation, if you think about it, is for the purpose, on some level, of productivity. You're trying to accomplish something, clarify something. There's an exchange of information so that we all hopefully walk away wiser and more worked through and with greater degree of understanding, etc. But that's not what Shabbos is for. Shabbos is for singing. Meaning to say, Shabbos is for just basking in the glory of the moment, in the joy of the present, without anything that you might gain or not gain, because at the end of the day, okay, so what? People came for Shabbos, they sat by your meal, you sang for 3 hours and they left. Sachakol, so what did they get? You know what they got? They got Shabbos. They got Shabbos. Even if they don't leave any wiser or any different than they were. The whole thing of Shabbos is singing. Because the whole thing of Shabbos is simcha. Because the whole thing of Shabbos is to get rid of the anxiety that's born of the reality that we find ourselves in, which is the 6 millennia, which is, there's what to accomplish, there are lacks to be filled, there's stuff to do, there's work that needs to be done. But really what Shabbos is all about is just singing. It's just zemiros, shiur, v'sishbachos. So here we take a look at Likutei Moharan Tinyana Kuf Dalid, which is a related topic. Actually, it's both, because it actually relates to what we learned in the previous teaching about the simple avodah. Where Rabbi Nassan records at the end of Likutei Moharan Tinyana 104, Rabbi Nachman greatly valued, like his great-grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov before him, the simple expressions of Avodas Hashem of just regular people. He loved it. He appreciated it. He valued it so deeply. Just the simple, holy, straightforward, authentic, honest Jews. He appreciated really so greatly those who were able to sit for a long time without their minds convincing them there's a better use of your time, this is so embarrassing, this is what you're doing, what's this worth. people who were able to sit and just say Tehillim. And just to say tefillas, like the simple folk, the simple people, who this is what they would do. They would just sit and just say pages and pages and pages and pages out of the siddur. I'm reminded of a story. I may have told you this story in the past. There's a story where the Baal Shem Tov one time came to a particular village, and the people were so excited that the Baal Shem Tov was coming, each one for their own purpose. Some were asking to ask for brachas, and some wanted to hear the divrei Torah that the Baal Shem Tov was teaching, the chizuk that he was revealing. But there was one particular Jew who was particularly excited. And the reason is that this was a very simple Jew, and he couldn't afford various different kinds of siddurim or machzorim for the year. The only thing he was able to do was to buy one volume, that in this volume contained all the tefillas for the entire year. Everything was in there. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Chanukah, Purim, Pesach, Shavuot, everything throughout the whole year, all of the different piyutim and the slichas and the mizmor, everything was all in one huge volume. And because this Jew was such a simple Jew, and maybe he was surrounded by such simple Jews, it was just a village, a backward little village somewhere in Ukraine, he didn't know what he was supposed to say when. And so just out of an abundance of caution, he would spend hours and hours and hours a day saying the entire thing, because he didn't know what he should say. So he would just, every single day, he would say, Ma'is Tzur and Shoshanas Yaakov and everything that you find in the thing, and all the different slichas, everything. He would just say the whole entire siddur every day. And finally, the Baal Shem Tov, a Talmud Chacham, a tzaddik, a person who knows, came to town. So he was so excited, and he came to the Baal Shem Tov and he told him, he asked him, please, I'm having a hard time delineating between, the different parts of davening. Can you please help and show me what to say on which day? So the Baal Shem Tov said with pleasure. He sat down with this Jew after the davening or whatever it was, right after the Baal Shem Tov had given a shiur or something. And he took little pieces of paper and he wrote down what each piece of paper, when each thing is for, and he stuck them into the siddur on the top so that he should know, based on where the papers are, which the different sections of the siddur are. So that way it will save him so much time, and it will help him so that he doesn't have to say the whole siddur every day. Unfortunately, as the Baal Shem Tov was leaving, all the crowds of people were accompanying him out as he was going to get back on his wagon and to travel. And as the last few people were leaving the shul, as this Yid, Yankala, was sitting there with his huge, big machzor siddur, combination prayer book, someone bumped the table, and the siddur fell off the table and it fell on the floor, and all the pieces of paper fell out. Quickly he swooped down, he picked up the siddur, he gave it a kiss, and he runs outside to see if he could catch up to the Baal Shem Tov, because he doesn't know when he'll have another opportunity to find somebody who knows how to tell him which part of davening to say when. And by that time, the Baal Shem Tov is getting on the coach, and he's pushing through the crowds of people, and the coach takes off. And he quickly grabs his little horse, whatever he has, and he's riding behind the Baal Shem Tov's wagon, and the Baal Shem Tov is traveling and traveling and traveling so quickly, but he's trying to make, to catch up, and slowly but surely, he's gaining a little bit, and he sees that the Baal Shem Tov and his wagon reaches a riverbank. And he sees the Baal Shem Tov comes off of the wagon, and from the back of the wagon of the Baal Shem Tov, of course, he pulls out some kind of scarf, and he places the scarf on the floor. He gets back in the wagon, and Alexei, the Baal Shem Tov's wagon driver, moves the wagon a little bit onto the scarf, and before they know it, and before this Yankala, who's watching this from a distance, galloping on his horse, he sees the Baal Shem Tov's wagon with the horses are on the other side of the river. And they're traveling. So this Yankel, such a simple Jew, he doesn't know from Chachmas, he gets off his horse, he takes his scarf, he puts it down on the floor, gets back on the horse, walks on his horse onto the scarf, and before he knows it, he's on the other side of the river. And finally, he's galloping, and he catches up with the Baal Shem Tov, and the Baal Shem Tov stops, and he looks, and he sees it's this Yid. And the Yid starts to tell him, please, Rebbe, the siddur, you put all the pieces of paper in, crowds of people, somebody bumped the table, the siddur fell out, it fell on the floor, the pieces of paper fell out. please, can you help me put all the pieces of paper, show me where they belong, show me so that I could know what to say when. And the Baal Shem Tov looked at this sweet Jew and he said, tell me, how did he make it across the river? So the Yid said, well, I did exactly what you did. I saw you took off your scarf, or you took your scarf and you transported to the other side. I did the same thing. I also have a scarf. I put it down. Here I am. So the Baal Shem Tov told him, he said, listen, you keep saying the whole siddur every day, okay? He said, I'm not putting these papers back in. He said, obviously you're doing something right. He said, it's okay. You could keep on saying all of these tefillas and bakashas. This is what you need to do. So this is the simple people. This is what Rabbi Nachman was, the air of the Baal Shem Tov's teaching, the same energy. He appreciated just the simple, vulnerable, honest, authentic, that's the key word, just the simple, humble avodah of simple Jews. So going back inside, more relevant to the teaching we just learned, Vayamazir u'mechiach esanu kama pa'amim lezamer zemiros b'Shabbos. Rabbi Nachman would warn and adjourn and encourage us again and again and again to sing on Shabbos, sing zemiros by your table. Vayamakbid, and listen to this, it's strong language, because don't usually think of Rabbi Nachman getting angry. But vayamakbid the joyous ma'od, he would get very, very agitated. Al mishu hu chacham be'enav, somebody who is so sophisticated, ve'enav mesamer tzalzamer zemiros b'Shabbos. So he's too busy learning, he's too busy with his avodas, and he wouldn't singing songs on Shabbos, over matzah Shabbos, or shar avodas pshutas, or all other simple things. You think you're too good for that, you think you're beyond that, you're too sophisticated for it. The Rebbe said, no. Don't get confused. Ki ikar hayahados, because the essence of what it means to be a Jew is b'pshitos u'v'tmimos gamor, is with absolute simplicity, humility, without any sophistication and reason to believe. It's so confusing. Why? But it's like our tradition has become antithetical to this. It's like the more convoluted and the more sophisticated and the more impressive, the greater it is. By the Baal Shem Tov and by, I would say, all generations of Yidden prior, that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was not the limud bi'iyon and the pilpulim and the chaburis and the chakiris and the stuff. That's not it. That's all beautiful. If you could bring Hashem into that, the beauty of Torah, and there's nothing like it in the world. But that's not the essence. That is not the essence. The essence is Rachmana Liba Boy. Hashem desires not what you can do and how fancy your brain is. Hashem wants your heart. Ein Eitza, Ein Tfuna Neged Hashem. Hashem is not impressed by your mental gymnastics. It's all cute and it's a joke to him. Hashem is infinitely beyond whatever we're able to to impress ourselves with and amuse ourselves. It's a joke. But the thing that isn't a joke is our heart. The thing that isn't a joke is the expression of a desire to befriend the infinite. To invite Hashem into our lives wholeheartedly. That's not a joke. That's something Hashem takes very, very seriously. Ki ikar yahadus ubipshitus ubitmimus gamar blishum chachmas kamavur etzleina kvar kama pa'amim, like it says many, many, many times. V'gam hu ba'atzma zichron levracha. And Rabbi Nachman himself, who was a genius of unparalleled proportion, and not because he said so, and not because Reb Nosson said so, but because it's apparent, it's clear in his writings. He was a goyin oilam, Talmud Chacham Muvak. Rabbi Nachman said that if he wanted, he could teach kinds of teachings which would show in nigle, that would show everybody they don't even know what they're talking. They don't know how to learn. He said, "Eini chayfetz b'zeh," I have no interest in doing that. He was an unbelievable genius. But v'gam hu ba'atzma zichron levracha, Rabbi Nachman himself, koydem she'igia lo yachalas hakovich and istalik al yadai, before he became ill with the illness from which he would pass. Koydem lazeh, prior to that, which obviously made it very difficult for him to do this. Kol yamav hayimizamer zemiros harbe b'chol Shabbos v'Shabbos u'matzah Shabbos. He would sing so many different nigunim about the Shabbos meals and matzah Shabbos by Malav Malka. Every Shabbos and matzah Shabbos. Finally, we finished the last few minutes with this last teaching in Sichos Haran, 520. Unbelievable. Okay, we'll have to check out that teacher on Instagram. Thank you. So Amar, a similar teaching, Rabbi Nachman said, Ani mekane es Rabbi Yudel Chassan, and I can't remember the other name, Rabbi Yehuda maybe, Rabbi Yud, the son-in-law of Rabbi Yud, sheyachaloi maharbe. He said he knows how to zug, he knows how to say a lot. Hainu, what did that mean? Shapoi Breslov, that in the city of Breslov, Hayish Echad, there was one person, sheyaragaloi mahar betchinos atilim amonis b'chol yad. He was busy hours and hours with Tehillim and saying Tchinas Ubakashas. Rabbi Nachman said, I'm jealous. That's what I'm jealous of. You want to know what I should be jealous of? I'm jealous of this person. Not jealous of the big, huge Talmud Chacham that's, it's maybe I'll be a Talmud Chacham, maybe I won't. I'll work on the learning that I could do. But everyone could do this. Everyone could express a simple, authentic, not sophisticated, super pashut expression of yearning for dvekas with Hashem. That's the only thing that I want. That's what's good. And to do that for hours a day, Rabbi Nachman said, that I'm jealous of. Rabbi Nachman was jealous of this individual who was able to say so much. Again, a similar teaching before Rabbi Nachman received the illness and became ill with tuberculosis, that he would leave the world on account of that illness. Like we just learned, all of his days, Rabbi Nachman would sing and sing and sing and sing his Shabbos zemiros. Can you imagine being by Rabbi Nachman's Shabbos table? It's so difficult for those of us who are connected to Rabbi Nachman, because where else are you going to find a Rebbe? Rabbi Nachman's my Rebbe. Where else are you going to find a Rebbe like that? I want to sit by Rabbi Nachman's table. His table I could sit by. Where do you find a, once you go to the top? So where do you find a Rebbe? Where do you find a tish? That you can sit with. So Baruch Hashem, there are many mashpiyim and Rebbes, but the Rebbe's our Rebbe. And this is what he would do by his Shabbos table, just sing and sing and sing. Listen to this terminology. It's super, super intense and deep. Says Rabbi Nassan, Umishaloi Shama Oisai, whoever had not heard Rabbi Nachman, when he would sing his melody, which I was privileged enough to produce actually and send out, now it's the 3 weeks, but afterwards, you can listen to it, it's on YouTube on the channel. His Azamer B'Shvachin, Azamer B'Shvachin, if anybody didn't hear Rabbi Nachman singing that, Belel Shabbos v'asada l'sudasa b'boker, and the way that he sang asada l'sudas v'chein shara zemiros kol mekadesh menucha v'simcha, Rabbi Nachman would sing all these melodies. Loi shama toiv me'olam. Said Rabbi Nassan, you've never heard something good in your life. Ashrei oizen shama zois. Fortunate are the ears who have heard this. Listen to this. Va'ashrei mi sheyishma zois la'asid ba'olam haba. Fortunate will be the person who in Olam Haba has the privilege of hearing Rabbi Nachman Mibreslov sing Shabbos zemiros. This is the way that Rabbi Nassan, who knew a thing or two about Olam Haba and concepts and hasagas, and he knew better than anybody. He said, this is Olam Haba. To hear this tzaddik, this mind, this heart, this spirit, singing the Shabbos zemiros with such melodious grace, such chen, such beauty and splendor. We should be privileged, Be'ezus Hashem. What a privilege we have, It's such a privilege. We're connected to this tzaddik. Of all human beings, we're Jews. And of all Jews, we have the privilege of being among those who are connected to this tzaddik. It's just unbelievable. What a privilege. Like, you know how many things had to go right in your life and in my life so that the obstacles that for so many other people prevent them from accessing these teachings, we've broken past them, or they just weren't obstacles. It's an unbelievable privilege. Ashreinu matoiv chalkeinu umanoim garaleinu. What a privilege. What a privilege And mamish, like Reb Shimon's car wash over there, we should mamish be cleansed, right? Is that what that is? Zorik aleinu mayim tahir mata'artem. Hashem should mamish just throw the cleaning waters of the Nachal Neveah Makar Chachma, of the flowing stream. Hashem should mamish just clean us all, and help us be simple Jews, simple Yidden. Tehillim, simple, humble, simple things, and just to pour out our hearts. Shivchi kamayim libech nechach b'nei Hashem. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Okay, if there's anybody who would like to share anything, Shimon, if you want to give some words about your car wash and what's the avoid over there, you're welcome to. Or anybody else who wants to ask, we have a few minutes now.
Yeah, there seems to be a contrast between what you're saying there and the Chabad approach. I suppose there's times where you want the Chabad approach and times you want that approach.
That's right.
Is that what the answer to it is?
There always has to be an integration. If there's one thing that Rabbi Nachman taught more than anything, it's synthesis. It's you need both. And so there certainly is, and again, what people don't understand is that they like to set this up, right, as a dichotomy between, like, Chabad is in the brain and Breslov is in the heart, and Chabad is intellectual and Breslov is emotional. Do you know how much intellect there is in Breslov? Do you know how much depth and philosophy and Kabbalah and rigor, I mean, on the loftiest levels, and conversely, do you know how much heart there is in Chabad, right? So, it's like we like to make these dichotomies. Synthesis, we need both. We need the Breslov, we need Chabad, we need everything in the world, but we have to also appreciate the uniqueness, and the diversity of the various points of contact, so that we can understand, okay, what do I need in this moment, and where am I going to get it, But I think you're 1,000% right to point out there are different moments in our lives that we need to draw on different energies. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
Right, and if I may, another one.
Sure.
When you started speaking, I thought that you weren't going to say Musket. I thought you were going to say his Bodhidut.
Ah. Yeah. It is.
That one said he achieved it through his Bodhidut.
Yes, which he did. Prastic is just a word that's more encapsulative of many, many different kinds of simple, humble avodas Hashem. But how encouraging is that, right? That means that for any of us who are on the Zoom, any of the many, many hundreds of people who listen to these recordings online, it's just simple. It's simple. He's stupid, that's like that. It's simple. It's just simple. It's not the complicated things. It's the Tehillim on your shelf. It's the words that you can already say. It's just believing in that, valuing that, restructuring the hierarchy of our values, of what we think Hashem, finds impressive or even valuable, and just realizing it's about the heart. It's about the heart. And to give that to Hashem with total sincerity. Okay, we should be zochet to it.
For example, when you're talking about Tehillim, you're saying that, for example, my Hebrew isn't fluent.
Oh, not Hebrew. It doesn't have to be Hebrew. Doesn't have to be Hebrew.
You want me to say it in English?
You could do it in English too. That's what Rabbi Nachman said. He would even say the translations. It doesn't matter. The main thing is simple and humble. And direct.
Thank you.
Okay. Wishing everybody an amazing rest of your week. Thank you it's such a great way to start my day, to start my week. Really, it's the middle of my day, but to start the week on Monday with this gives us strength and focus, and we'll see each other again soon. Ezra Hashem. Okay, all the best. Only good news.
I assume you realise. I assume you realise that sometimes your voice breaks up a bit. Maybe the bit rate of your connection isn't fast enough. The voice breaks up a bit sometimes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I noticed just today it says the internet is not working so well, but usually it does. I'm also interested. Do you find that the camera is clearer? Does the camera? Does it look?
Camera's fine. Camera's very good. Very good.
Yeah. Okay. Good. It's a brand new camera.
Like you're underwater. Sometimes it sounds like you're underwater.
Is that true just for this shiur or off?
That's what the sound goes in and out. To this year.
This year. Yeah. I saw the internet was having trouble. Yeah. Okay, but usually we're okay. Okay. Thank you again for joining. All the best. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Thank you.
Mevakshei Hashem Yismach lei Mevakshei Hashem Nidridayo Nidridayo Nidridayo